Latina FM, tu radio por internet presenta Alas de Amor. Alas de Amor, un programa con enfoque en los niños y jóvenes para la salud y bienestar de ellos y sus familias, conducido por ELSA PRADO. Bienvenidos.
Starting this episode of Wings of Love. Today our guest is SUZANNE NESS, State Rep of District 66. And she's the oldest of four sisters, all of whom are very active in the community. She's the daughter of a trailblazer, a trailblazing community activist and talented musician. SUZANNE is also a wife, a mother, and she has 3 adult children. Of course, she's a grandma and enjoying every part of her life at this point. She grew up in Marengo and resides in Crystal Lake with her husband, Robert. Welcome to Wings of Love.
Thank you, Elsa. It's such an honor to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Oh my goodness. I think that just knowing the work that you're doing in your community, and one of the things that really stood out, that really captured my attention, is when we were at the Illinois Immigration Council, and we were talking about the farm workers. I think it's a subject that we cannot forget right around now. It's increasingly becoming an issue and a problem.
Yeah.
What would you tell us about the situation currently? Because I don't know what's going to happen if we're lacking in farm workers, and then our farmers are getting cuts in every direction, and it's affecting our families and it's affecting children. And what's going to happen?
I don't know what's going to happen. I know what's happening between the federal government cutting USDA money from the federal government, that money that was going, in particular, one program called the Local Food Producers Program.
Yes.
That went to younger farmers. And then all of that food produced goes to, in Illinois, went to 838 sites, including schools and food banks. They cut the program. They cut the funding. It was $28 million for the Midwest, of which I think a portion of ours was like 11 million. And then, of course, you couple that with immigration and what's happening around, revoking visas. The sentiment right now, even against it, it's a problem. And there was already a shortage of workers and farm workers. And I think this is going to compound the issue.
It is. And I'm just petrified at thinking of all this, most possibly either the shortage of food and also an increase in hunger. I can't not talk about it the way it is. It's like what's going to happen to overall just the average family.
Yeah.
None of us are billionaires here.
No, it's totally true. And people just trying to get by with the cost of goods rising, the shortage of even local. I mean, I'm worried about like the local grown where we live.
Yes.
And
Yes.
Chicago is surrounded by some phenomenal farmland. It's one of our biggest exporters and moneymakers is farming in the state of Illinois.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely a problem. And I know for myself and a number of my colleagues here, we're watching it daily to know what's happening. Yeah.
And what are you guys working on per se, just at your level, at the state rep level? Like,
Sure.
What is it that you guys already kind of have, in the works? I'm sure people have all these questions as they're watching us, trying to figure out like what's going to happen to us, how will things, look by summer? I mean, we are watching our government being dismantled in a couple of months. Yeah. So what does summer look like for us when we think about the whole picture?
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could say for sure I know what it's going to look like. We are in Illinois, and one of the good things about that is, we have a governor that believes in personal freedom and securing that, and he has been an outspoken critic of the federal government. And of course, we have things like the SAFE Act here. There's legislation that we are doing right now. So we're in the middle of session. I'm in Springfield. Yes. And between the work on the budget, which we are, we're going through the hearing process. And one thing that we've been looking at is, where are the programs that are the most affected by the federal dollars? We have a pot of money that is ours, right? We have our general funds. And we know what we have and what we can use that for. So we're looking at where's going to be the greatest need and how will we direct funds that way. That's one thing we're doing. There have been bills that I've seen. A bill came by on the board today, as a matter of fact, that increases the number of chickens that can be produced. So for food, we had a cap at 5,000. I just learned this today, and this bill brings it up to 7,500. So we're trying to give our farmers in Illinois more tools to be profitable with their land, with their resources, without relying as heavily on the federal government.
Right. So, how everybody's talking about the cost of eggs.
Yes.
And now we're talking about the chickens. So, and I'm not trying to be like facetious or anything, but it's like, what's going to happen with the eggs,
what is going to, I think that's the thing that people notice the most. And I've seen the price come down a little bit, but nowhere near what it was. And some of what created this issue, of course, is the bird flu that's wiped out stock. And what the federal government does, and here's another impact, by reducing the funding through the USDA, which goes around and tests, for the avian flu, like that then reduces our ability to bring back that stock in order to bring egg production back up so that the costs will come down. So, I think we're all getting a big lesson in what government does do and can do for our lives, right? It's that behind the scenes stuff that nobody pays attention to that. We don't think about the inspectors of the food, but you do when we don't have them because they've been let go, right? So we are all getting an upfront and close look at what government does.
We're really getting, a picture that most of us did not get in a long, long time. Yes. We're getting a whole different perspective of our lives at this point. And I really believe that we're all really feeling significantly vulnerable in this atmosphere that we're living in right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And it does feel scary and uncertain. And I think that's when it's so important when leaders, people in positions speak up and are available and, so that, and like this conversation of being able to say directly like what we're doing, and that people can trust the people that are representing them. I got into politics and government for that reason, because I felt like we just were not being represented effectively, that the people I saw in office were more interested in what it was for them and their needs instead of the greater good. So that was why I ran for my first race. It really was, I was bothered by that. And I was just raising my kids like everybody else. I was living my life. I had a business, and I didn't think about a lot of these things. I wasn't thinking about it, I thought, there's good people, la, la, la. And then like Donald Trump got nominated the first time around. And that's when I started to really I woke up. I was like, how did this unqualified person get to be nominated as president? And then of course he won. So that was my first step into it. I ran for county board in McHenry County. And that's what started it all.
And tell our audience as well that, the committees that you're on, so that they get a bit of, more of a better picture of who you are and what you're representing.
Sure. Well, I chair the Adoption and Child Welfare Committee, which oversees DCFS is one of the agencies that we oversee and things related to that. So that's something I'm really proud of this year. It's new for me. I've been on the committee for a term. I also serve on energy and environment. So the environment, I serve on human services, which is all of the programs affecting, seniors and individuals with disabilities. I serve on general services appropriations, health and human services appropriations, and counties and townships. So those are my 6 committees.
Yes, and I really admire the work that you're doing, because I mean, you are definitely leading here with a lot of other women. And as I had stated before, it's really difficult right now in the environment that we're in as women professionals, because we really have a president that hates women. So, there's no, how should I put it? I don't have to back down on stating the facts.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a reality for us women. And when I'm hearing that some of our rights as fundamental as voting are going to be jeopardized right now, I'm sorry, I'm going to talk about it. This is wrong. And how we're being treated as women's, for women's rights and everything that we represent in our society and our communities.
Yeah, and some of that, I mean, I share that too. I mean, again, it was what compelled me to run, wanting to see, at least at the local level, and where in the county I live in, there were just a few women on the county board, and so that felt important. But it's the barriers that get constructed too. So sometimes it's not always an outright, somebody won't come out and say well, we don't want women here, but then the barriers in place, like unaffordable daycare, or not being able to get healthcare for just basic needs, things that, being a caregiver, if you are a caregiver, either of, older parents, a relative, or children, women often assume that role in our society.
Yes.
When we take away those resources to caregivers, that burden really falls on women. So then it's even harder to advance our careers, be in our professions. It's not always even just the outright disregard, it's all of the other ways. So having women in these roles is vital. Just the showdown last week in Congress by the Republican and the Democratic Congresswoman who fought proxy voting so that new parents could, that to me was great. And I thought that's why you need women.
Exactly. Yeah. And this is why I felt it's so important to have you on my program, because these are the things that really matter in our communities. These are the things that are impacting our families.
Yeah.
At every core level of our lives at this point.
Yeah.
And it's like no matter how much we may have these billionaires wanting to take us out of the picture, it is essential. We are essential in our communities at this point.
Yeah. I couldn't say it better. That is so true.
But I just, have to bring up the other issue, but because I always focus my programs on families and youth and children and, the most important people in our lives, which is family. And one of the things that I feel a bit concerned about is pulling children to do the work of farm workers.
Yeah.
And I could see them doing it. And that's I find it infuriating, to be honest, because I feel leave the children alone.
Yeah.
And let them be children.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm having this deja vu of legislation where we actually had to have this conversation about reinforcing child labor laws, because some states have started to lower that age, right? And and making sure that we don't. And so in Illinois, we're pretty good about that. We've really put in some measures, making sure that children who do come to work on farms with their families get educations, get vaccinations. We do a lot of that kind of support, and the farms that employ people, they have to provide a lot of those services, and not put children in the field. So, and I feel I don't know, and I hope I'll say this to your audience as well, but if you ever know of somebody that's abusing that, report it to the Attorney General. Our state takes this seriously.
Exactly. And this is why we need you on my program, because we need to talk about these things that really hit home. I mean, this really hits home There are so many things going on right now that are just taking place under the table.
Yeah.
And it's just outright darkness in every sense, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually think to myself, here I am in a generation where, we're taking care of elderly parents, and we're also taking care of grandchildren. And somehow, our generation, we're kind of in the middle of everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah. They call us the sandwich generation.
Yes, and it's like unlike any other generation, and I don't know if they realize it, but even we were at mass, and even the priest was talking about it. He says, a lot of your parents never got to take care of their parents.
Yeah.
Because they all passed away. And now people are living longer, so now our generation is taking care of our aging parents, but we're also taking care of our grandkids.
Yeah. Yeah, and how, and I think that's where, like, being in this role and hearing from people who tell us about these things, then we can look at our policies and adapt them to meet those needs. And I will say, like, that's one of the things about the federal cuts that I'm finding the most challenging, because programs like Medicaid, which provide, even if you are taking care of your parents, at least if they have health insurance, right? That's one burden less. But when we start talking about reducing those sources of revenue, or SNAP benefits or food pantries, I mean, my gosh. Just today I heard from a food bank in my district, and they know that when Medicaid goes down, when people start to lose their funding, that they see 150% increase in the need. So if we're not prepared at the state level to fill that gap, then people go hungry, and that's unconscionable, right? Like, that's our obligation.
Right.
To me, that's not a partisan issue. That is a humanitarian issue.
I agree.
We are making sure that we can do that here in Illinois.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's just absolutely mind-boggling to me right now to watch these big fat billionaires get fatter while these children are literally starving. And it's not funny, that if anybody finds it funny, this isn't funny. There are so many families that are barely surviving right now.
Yeah.
And they're barely making it, and they still want to take whatever little food they have out of their mouths.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's unconscionable. And I hope increase in people getting engaged and coming to town halls. And, I do monthly coffees, I do mobile office events. The last couple have been just busy, people showing up, and they're asking, like, not only are they asking, like, for services, but they're also asking, how can we help? What can we do?
Exactly.
And so I'm really encouraging people, stay connected, help us get the word out, make sure that people understand and know why these things are happening and who's behind it, so that when you get a chance to go vote again, that's how we take back our government. That's how we are able to, we're going to have to right the ship. We're going to have to, put the balance back into some of these things.
Right.
It won't happen under the current administration.
Yeah, it's not. And I really feel proud of what Wisconsin did. They actually did not sell out. And, that's points for the Midwest.
Absolutely.
We cannot sell out. There's too much at stake right now. And there's just so many things happening that are going wrong, that we better, really rise up and take our family situation, to where it's supposed to go.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I family first. I mean, that's my, you read off my motto and where I'm from. And in fact, my family, we had a family party Saturday night. It was my birthday weekend. And
happy belated birthday.
Thank you. But we wanted to have a little bit of fun. And so just to make it fun, we just, we turned it into just like a fun theme party, like a magical creature party. Like, you could come dressed in like your favorite character. And just to add some lightness to it, and
Exactly.
building those relationships with our families. Like, we're going to look out for each other, just like every
We have
family
to.
wants to do that.
Yeah.
And I think the state of Illinois, as a representative, I want to do that for our state. Make sure that we have, the resources we need right here, that women feel heard and valued in Illinois, that children know, that we're looking out for them, that seniors on fixed incomes and families who have children with disabilities, that we are working to make sure that they have the resources to care for their families. Those are like matters of principle to me.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like the core basic stuff, and
Yes.
why are we not taking care of our veterans either?
Yes.
People are like totally forgetting our elderly, and we
Yes.
have to remember there are so many people that are elderly that need to be taken care of at this time. I just
Yes.
can't get over how upside down our world is, and it only took, less than 3 months. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Absolutely crazy what we are going through right now.
Yeah, no, for sure. But like having opportunities like this, the commitment you've made to do this, to speak with leaders and to introduce leaders to the communities that, that value and trust your opinion. I think it's amazing that you do that. And of course, your job, that's critical work. And translation services, I see those line items and we ensure that we fund all of those, because people have the right to understand the information in the language that they understand it in.
That
right?
they understand, exactly. And it's a constitutional right.
Yes.
But they want to take that away.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is a country made of immigrants. Why are we, going somewhere else with the whole entire world? It's just crazy at this point.
Yes, it is crazy. And it's almost like watching it in slow motion, except it's happening very quickly, right? So
yes.
And sometimes I guess I always come back to the local because it's what I can control. But it forces me to look inward again when I see that outwardly, and other than being able to, I show up when it matters to show up, and I think we're all going to do that. But in the interim here locally, making sure that people know how to reach me, know how to, and I tell anybody, know how to reach your representatives. We're a pretty responsive bunch.
Right. That's what I think. And I always encourage everybody, reach out to your representatives so they know your concerns.
Yes.
A lot of people are very afraid of, writing that email or making that phone call, but it's so important that they reach out to you guys. I can't emphasize it enough how important it is, because I have other friends that are in those types of positions, and they tell me if people don't reach out to us, we don't know what's going on. We don't know, what the concerns are in the community.
Yeah. No, and I'll give you a couple of quick examples. In my time in office, I had an elderly couple call me. They had a bad storm happened. By the time they called me, they had already been without power for over 10 days. It was hot. Goodness. Their air was out. His wife was recovering from surgery. No one would help them. They called their township, they called their county. And I said, well, that's not right. And so they called me. We got in touch with somebody from the utilities. It took us 30 days. We got generators. 30 days, power came back on, but it was one of these weird circumstances where there were some other things happening. They lived in kind of an unincorporated area, but we were able to get it back on in a better solution than they had originally. And I see them every now and then. I'm like, how's the power? Not even a flicker since.
Right.
Another lady was being overcharged for water. We were able to help her with that. Like I'm amazed at how much we can do. Exactly. And so I always tell people, reach out to your rep. And if they tell you no, then call another one. And call until somebody says yes.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I agree. Yep. Or keep calling your reps until you get somebody's ear.
Yes.
Somebody's bound to hear.
Flood their voicemail.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. There's just so much right now on the burner. And I really feel bad for a lot of people that are underserved and going through a lot of bad, unfair practices and things happening right now to people. it's
Yeah.
something that we all have to, I think, pitch in a little bit more. I mean, a lot of us are used to kind of just sitting on the, like on the bench and kind of not doing anything. But I really think people have to get involved, and everybody has to put in their 2 cents right now. I mean, it's
Yeah.
a really bad time of need.
None of us can do any of this alone.
No.
And I even use the smallest example of check in on your neighbor. If you know you have an elderly
Yes.
neighbor, go check in on them. My office, we volunteered and adopted a weekly Meals on Wheels. So once a week, one of us goes and delivers meals. And last week was my turn because I was at home in the district. And every time I do that, these are not people that are bilking the system. These are
No.
not people that are
Exactly.
scamming. And yet when I hear that they want to cut, now the federal program wants to cut
Yes.
Meals on Wheels,
Yes.
it makes me so angry because
It does.
the people that will be impacted by that have the least agency. And so I like, if that is what I'm doing in this role, to make sure that those folks get that one meal a day, or sometimes, it's then I will fight for that, like, and continue to until that is done. But I wish every rep, I would love to invite President Trump to come out on my Meals on Wheels and deliver with me and see how people are living.
Right.
These are not wealthy people that are just scamming for a free meal.
No. And then some people don't realize this might be the only meal they get for the day.
Yep.
In
many cases
this
it
might be
is.
the only meal they get, and a lot of times it's very tight,
Yes.
for them financially, and that's the part that I think people are not, wanting to see. It
Yes.
is not. It is not what this picture that's being painted at all.
And many of these folks are homebound. They can't go to a food pantry. And
No,
food
exactly.
pantries are getting creative, and I've seen mobile ones, and all that stuff is great. So I tell people, if you have a neighbor, just check in on them, see how they're doing. If you run into the grocery store, call them up and see if they need something. I think those little acts of kindness are how we're going to get through this.
Yes.
People see the good. I look for the good because, we see the bad. We see it up front. We know, but looking for the good and find those people that can help. We can't, none of us can do it alone. We need
No,
people.
absolutely not. And then, like you were mentioning, if they cut out, like, they now they want to go after Social Security, and they want to go through, all these programs that were designed for the people when they can no longer work. I mean, my God, what are these elderly people supposed to do? If you're in your 80s and your 90s, come on, you take away, the food out of their mouth. I mean, it's just unconscionable, like you said. I mean, it's like there's even like no words to describe the level of cruelty. And I mean, I can't describe, we have a president that is completely cruel and heartless. And it's almost hard to fathom. It's like this type of a person exists.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? It's like, wow, just to wrap your head around it is really difficult.
For him. And I honestly believe that, people voted for him for all kinds of reasons. And I talked to some people, I talked to a lot of people.
Right.
And my district is such where I talk to Republicans, Democrats, Libertarians.
Anybody,
I have to.
right.
And, yeah. And, because I really want to understand. And I think some people thought like, oh, he was just talking. Oh, he didn't really mean that. I think for other people, it gave them permission for them to be cruel too, like
Exactly.
I still go back to, I will not succumb to that just because that's how some people want to be. I don't have to follow that. I don't think that is the way
No.
to be. And so I choose not to be that kind
Exactly.
of person. And I think that people will, your show, Wings of Love, I think love is the thing that will eventually bring us back together.
That's how I feel. Definitely.
Yeah. And sometimes some days are harder than others to think about that, but we have to hold on to it. That's how we'll get
Exactly.
through.
Right. And it is really difficult to get through all this hate. I mean, I even asked myself, where did all this hate come from? Like,
Yeah.
what created it? Why this cruelty, this level of, just being monstrous to other human beings? It's overwhelming.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is.
But I really am grateful that you're doing the work that you do,
Thank you.
and as women, we have to have this sisterhood towards each other, for this work that needs to be done in very
Hmm.
difficult times. I mean, probably one day we'll be old ladies that will be telling their grandkids about all these things that they don't understand at this point because they're too young to understand.
Yes. Thankfully, right?
Yes, but nonetheless, it's just totally like, wow,
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of times, I think you bring that up. I think that I hear people say, I want to do this work now so that my grandchildren have a better world to live in.
Exactly.
And grow up being kind. And nobody wants their kids to grow up being mean like that or being picked on. And yet we
Yes.
see examples of that in adults behaving in a way that I don't think we'd ever want our children to behave. So,
No.
we'll stay in the fight, Elsa. I'm not going
Yes, we
anywhere.
will. Yes, we will. So you're on your end. I'm over here, in the world of media and communication. But we need to back each other up, with the work that we do, and still keep lined up with everything that's going on, and just helping others in this way, because everybody helps in their way. And there's
Yes.
so much anybody can do. I mean, each and every one of our viewers can participate in this. Everybody can join in one way or another. You can
Mhm.
pay it forward just with one person a day, and you will see the difference. You will make a difference. It's just going to be a better world for all of us.
Agreed.
Right? I mean,
100%.
it's just
Yeah.
unreal.
Yeah.
But I'm really glad to hear that you guys are working on these things, and that you guys are, trying to do the best that you can given the circumstances, because this is really difficult to deal with. I mean, I never thought I would have to see this. You know what I mean? Somehow, some way, how when we were getting raised, they were telling us that we were evolving and that it was going to be a better world for all of us, and that the world would be better than it was for our ancestors, the women before us. And yet we have somebody taking us back to messing around with our voting now. And
Yeah.
you're like, what?
Yeah.
What happened? How did we take all these big steps backward?
Yeah. Well, we don't take them. That's the point. We will
Exactly.
not go back.
And that's
Yeah.
exactly what I intended. It's like, we
Yeah.
cannot go back.
Yeah.
We
Totally.
cannot go back in time. Our grandmothers fought for this, and we're going to hold it up for them too, because our grandmothers really did a lot of work for us to be where we're at.
That's right. On the shoulders of strong women. That's right. Yeah. I love that.
And you know it, right?
Oh, yes. My grandmothers were awesome. I think about them every day when I'm doing this work. And the one lived long enough to see me in this role. Yes, yes. And so I was really glad that she had that chance to see me elected. I was really grateful for that.
Now, tell us just a little bit about your grandmothers, because I feel it's important where people understand that it is our ancestors that really led us forward.
Yeah. Both my grandmothers were born to immigrant households. Their mothers had immigrated here, not by their own choice. Their husbands came here for work, and then they were forced to follow. But that really impacted both my grandmothers very much. And they both came of age right around World War II, when women started to get more opportunities. But then, that kind of scaled back. The prevailing message I remember from both of my grandmothers, it was twofold. One was really like to carve your own path. I felt like the messaging was very strong. Get an education. They were both very independendent women. They always had their own money, and they always encouraged me to have my own money.
To have your own money. Exactly.
Yes. They really, because they didn't want me to be reliant on somebody else for that. And so, and to vote, to make sure that I exercised my rights, because as you stated, like people fought really hard for that.
Yes.
And so we just, I have, by honoring that, of course, like we have, and my own mother, my mom she's very much an activist, and raised us to think about other people in our communities. And so it's like, we don't have a choice. I don't have a choice in the matter. Like, this work is in my blood, and, it's really important to me to be doing that, to be in service, honoring their memory, and also, being a good role model for my children and grandchildren. So
we got grandbabies to leave a legacy for.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
So in closing, because I know how time flies, and I know that you're at work, and I know that you're still not done for the day, tell us, what can you advise, or what would you say to our community at this time?
It's a great question. I would say, don't despair. The worst thing we can do is despair and give up hope. Know that people here, at least in the state of Illinois, that we are working hard to try to counter what's happening at the federal level. Part of it is understanding what the impact is going to be. The other part of it is knowing how we can then fill those gaps, and make your voices heard. Email, get connected to your local representatives, city council, whoever, whatever unit you're in, and get involved. Check on your neighbors, like I said. And when it's time to get back, we'll be taking to the streets. The protests are starting.
Right.
I think that's really important. I intend to be out there as well when session is over, because I think that's how we will really show and force how the more people are rejecting this administration, the direction it's going, right? And not letting that define us. This moment will not be defined by the Trump administration. We get to claim that. So stay hopeful and lean into each other, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, that's how we'll do it. And ELSA, it's just a sheer pleasure to meet with you and to have this conversation. And thank you so much for inviting me.
You're welcome. My pleasure. And I hope you come again. And I hope that next time we get together, it's going to be because things are in a better place for all of us, for all of our communities. And thank you again, for collaborating with Wings of Love and your time. I know your time is very valuable, and yet you took this time out of your day to be here with us. We've been broadcasting live through Dimension Latina FM. We are in Chicago, and we are all about our community. So thank you. And to everyone who's been watching and our audience, blessings. Until next time. Bye-bye. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Comienza a conducir tu propio show de radio en Dimensión Latina FM y sé parte de nuestra familia. Llámanos al 925-819-2463. Solo música buena.
Hasta aquí llegamos con nuestra programación en vivo. Gracias por tu sintonía. Dimensión Latina FM, tu radio por internet.